Greetings. Everyone well? Well, if everyone was well, they'd be here, wouldn't they? Everyone's not well, so we're having to be mindful of not making a joke of that, but just make light of it. We've got, Bob's not here tonight. Judy's with him. He's running fever. So remember him and Jody. He continues to add to his problems, bless his heart. He's broken his thumb. And Tyler's supervisor, she's still having some real bad problems with cancer. Twins have got COVID. Hilda, her daughter Monica fell, and so she's having to help her right now. So remember them. Sister Margie goes in for Heart Cath Friday. So remember her. And Sister Sue had called. She's got a number of problems as far as her family's concerned. We've got a son that's had a heart attack. The daughter's just found out got diabetes. She's got a whole bunch of things going on right now. So do keep Sue and her family in mind and prayer. So these are some that might need to be mentioned. Know of any others I need to note? Mike McLeod is supposed to come home Friday. Okay. Okay, Kim Hood is on hospice. And we do remember Danny Taylor as well as Dion's brother. Try to remember all these if I can. Any others? Well, before we get started, we'll have a word of prayer with that one. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy great and holy name. We give thee thanks, O Father, for the day we've had, for the blessings of life we enjoy day by day. We're grateful for those things that have come to us that allow us to be able to enjoy the life we live. We pray, Father, that thou would help us always be mindful that all things come from thee and give thee thanks. We're thankful for the opportunity we have to come together to study from thy word, and we pray, Father, that we will glean things that would help us in our daily lives. Help us to make practical applications of those things which we learn from our study of thy book. We're mindful also, Father, of those that cannot be here because of sickness and others that suffer in different ways. Remember those that we have mentioned here and others that whom we might also be aware and have not mentioned here, but help us to have memory of them and that we might be able to do those things necessary to help encourage them. If it be thy will, Father, we pray that everything might work well for them and those that tend to them do those things necessary to increase their health. We're grateful, Father, for thy kingdom and that we might be part of it. And we pray, Father, that the life that we live might uphold the name of thy Son and that we might live in such a fashion that when we're done here, we pray, oh Father, that we might spend our eternity with thee. In Jesus' name we ask. Amen. Okay. Good to be back. Good to see everybody. Polishing pulpit is a rather massive undertaking for those who may not be realize exactly what all goes on. We were talking about just a minute ago the number of people that were there. Last year it was rather it was a lot of inconvenience from last year because they had so many people there and even the facilities not able to handle everything like it should. And so that's the reason why they have divided it in two parts. They've had last month they had part of it in Branson, Missouri, and I think they had about 2,500 something like that out there, and then that helped out a little bit with the numbers that were in Sevierville this time around. I would suspect probably around 3,500 or so, and maybe even a little bit more, but it wasn't nearly as bad. Still, a lot of the classes you had to hurry to get there. You have about 10 minutes between classes to get to the one you want to do, and if you don't hurry, you're some of the classes in smaller rooms, you just out of luck. And so if you have opportunity to maybe get a recording of them, you might be able to do that. But if most of them that I've been to really don't have what we would call a theme, but there was kind of an underlying theme. There were some of the songs that we sing and some of the keynote messages and things of this nature. were part of the keynote messages that you would find, and they were very good. But Polishing Pulpit covers just about everything that you can imagine that would relate to the church and to family, to elders, to deacons, to preachers. This is something that started 30 years ago. You had about 5 or 6 preachers that were getting together, and they were sharing sermon ideas. This is how it started. And then it grew to about 12, 13, and then all of a sudden there's about 50. And next thing you know, they're spreading out what it was that they were doing as far as the class is concerned. And then the time before that I went back in 2010, I think there was somewhere around at that particular point, about maybe 2,000 there. That's 2010, and it's grown to where it is now. And if there's any particular interest that you have in things concerning the church, there's going to be some class for it. And they start about 7:30 in the morning, and they don't stop till nearly 9 o'clock. And it just goes all the day long. Of course, you don't have to go to every one of them. You just, because there's all kinds of classes going on at the same time. I don't know how many is going on at the same time. I can sit down, I guess, and look through the thing and figure it out. But I would suspect that there's probably 10, 15 classes going on at the same time, if not more than that. So it's all of that all through the day. And you have opportunity to kind of take a little break and things of this nature and go where you want to do what you want to do. It's not, you don't have the expectation to stay there all the time, but that's pretty much what we did. And so it's just one of those things that you have opportunity ever to take that trip, but that'd be worth your while. Anyway, we're in the book of Judges. Judges chapter 9. And we had gotten through the section here. We're talking about a situation where the people of Shechem, who have been the ones that have elevated Abimelech into a position of being a king, have been rather presumptuous, when you think about it, because they have presumed that the people of Israel are just simply going to abide by whatever it is that they're doing there in Shechem, that they would just simply accept things as they are. And since they have simply set Abimelech up as being king, that everybody else is just going to simply abide by that. You have to still wonder. We don't have much knowledge about what it is that everybody thought, but you have to wonder that. And since it is the case that he was not one that was appointed by God to be put in such a position like that, things are not going to go well. And him being responsible for having killed the rest of the sons of Gideon. And I was going to back up just a little bit from that. We talk about the sons of Gideon, but it's also his brothers. So he kills all the rest of his brothers to come into the assumption of this particular position. And he evidently even doesn't live in Shechem. This is one of the things that we're going to learn from this situation. So at this time, he's not here. There's a fellow by the name of Gaal, you remember, that's come into the area. And he's made some rather boastful remarks, as you might recall, as you go back up to verse 28, who is Abimelech and who is Shechem that we should serve him? And we talked a little bit about the significance of that particular question. And who is it's not Abimelech, the son of Jeroboam. He's not really any better than all the brothers that he's killed as far as he's concerned. And then he's going to slight Zebul, who is an officer that has been selected and appointed by Abimelech, most likely like that of a mayor or a governor or something of this nature, as you might recall, over the area of Shechem. And then, of course, the braggadocio that he makes in verse 29, would to God this people be under my hand. And if that were the case, then I just simply remove Abimelech. And so he makes this loud boast, talking to Abimelech, who's not there. Increase that enemy and come out. So that's what made Zebul mad. And then so that's the reason he sent word to Abimelech that what you need to do is you need to get your forces together and make your way to Shechem, because these people have fortified the city against you. They're thinking that you may come if in fact you ever find out. But you need to come tonight and everybody that's with you, and just simply hide in the fields and take the place by basically by surprise, what it amounts to. And so do that at night, stay in the fields. And then when the next morning comes, and then when the sun is up, as you might recall, when he mentions in verse 33, that get up early and set yourself upon the city. And then when they come out, then whatever it is that you find occasion to do, then go ahead and carry it out. So that's where we have gotten. We're coming now down to verse 34 in the text. Now, something you have to remember about all this. If Samuel be the writer, and most likely he is, everything's not in precise order. You know, that's one of the things that you learn about the reading of the Bible. The writer, by inspiration, is going to write of things that are going to happen as if they've happened. And then you will see on some occasions, then you'll get the details of what happened. So that's kind of what you have to see when you go through this as to what was going to take place and then what eventually does and how it took place. So just kind of keep that in mind as we go through. So Abimelech rose up after he evidently received this message that you're seeing here and all the people that were with him. And by night, just as Zebul had suggested he do, in that they were going to lay in wait against Shechem, and he's going to do it in 4 companies. So now, if you're looking at the chart here, this little doodad here, Milton is so gracious for me. At that area there, you remember again, this is Mount Gerizim, Mount Ebal. Shechem is lying right on the slope of Mount Gerizim. And so what he's done is he set things up where he's going to surround the city. He's going to have most likely a company here, one there, one there. So he's got the place surrounded, and he's with evidently the topography that exists around this area, and perhaps the foliage and things of this nature. It's really well set up, I would suspect, for him to be able to hide. Most likely, as you're going to see in the latter text, since it is the case that you've got these mountains that are surrounding, he's taking some of his places and hiding up in the higher elevations. And this is what you're going to see when you start going down through the text, what Gaal is going to eventually be able to recognize, because the fact of the matter is, when you start looking at the language, it seems to be that he may be even at the top of the mountains at this particular point, because when you look a little bit later, when Gaal is seeing these things, if you've ever looked at a mountain very closely, that if anything is up on it, the silhouette basically is all you see, whether it be a deer or something of this nature, or man, you might be able to see the silhouettes of things moving around. So that's basically what it is that he's going to be seeing, as we're going to talk about here in just a minute. Now, he's made his place now. He's set up his forces in this area. This is what it is that he's going to do anyway. It speaks of it as if he's done it. And then when you go to verse 35, and the text states, Gaal, the son of Ebed, went out. Now, what had he been doing the night before? No, I'm talking about Gaal. What had he been doing the night before? Remember, they had gone out, got their, in fact, it involves a little bit of time. They had gone out, got the grapes, the grapes, and most likely had allowed for time for fermentation. It's most likely they had been drunk. They had a drunken party, is basically what this is coming down to. So now, in the next morning, you might kind of get the idea Gaal's trying to clear his head. Okay? And so he goes out, and very presumptuous he is in this situation, because the Bible tells us he stood in the entering of the gate of the city. So he goes out and he's standing right at the gate. So he's an open target. When you think about it, this is rather brazen. If in fact he is sober, the man is stupid. You know, either which way he goes, this is something that's not going to bode well as far as he's concerned. But he goes to the gate of the city. Abimelech rose up, and the people that were with him from lying in wait. This is what is going to happen. Okay. Now it speaks of it as if it's happening at this particular point. You got to remember, this is something that's about to take place. So you got to kind of put all these things together as it works. But now, if you're seeing, let's just kind of follow it as if it's going on at this particular point, okay? So God sees, now I want you to keep this in mind before going any further too. I want you to think about who's involved here. You got God and Abimelech. Now, who's represented here? You got two forces that are vying for power that are not selected by God, either one of them. So this entire episode is an exercise in folly. I don't care which way you go with it. Whoever it is that wins in this is still not in keeping with God's word. And whatever happens, it's not going to work out well for either one of them because of the kind of people that they are. So just kind of keep that in mind. So let's go verse 36. Now that he's out there, he's standing in the gates of the city. Now this is in the early morning. And when you're looking at a mountain in the early morning, also what do you see? Shadows are there. Early morning is also sometimes, especially when you're looking at an area where you've got a valley right here and the mountains surround it, generally one of the things that settles in is fog. You got fog and things of this nature. So that's going to kind of hide a lot of the clear imagery that may be taking place right here. So now you got a lot of shadow. Right. Now, if you'll note here, this is east, okay? So that means the sun is coming up here, all right? Look where the mountains are. You kind of get the idea? Yeah. Well, you're going to get sunlight off the side of this thing, but you're still not going to be able to see clearly everything. And it's just kind of keep that as to what it is. Try to imagine what it is that God is looking at this point. So at this time, he saw the people, or at least that's what he's thinking. And Zebul is evidently right there with him. And he tells him, says, behold, there come people down from the top of the mountains. So that's evidently what he's seeing. So as he's looking now back around these directions, remember, Abimelech has divided up his forces in four companies. So if there's a couple here, and there, then he's looking up at these areas right here, and he's through whatever the fog or the shadows and everything else. These are things that he's seeing right now, that people coming from the top of the mountains. What's the fool telling? You're just seeing things. Yeah. Now, if the bull realizes that Gaal has been drunk, then he's playing off of that. And there may be other ways or other reasonings why he may have stated something of that nature. Let's look at the two possibilities here. Number one, that he's drunk. He's got a hangover. Now, I don't know anything about hangovers except for the people that I've had in jail and things of this nature and had to deal with them. And that particular time of day, reasoning is not real clear. Yeah, the hangover, headaches, and things of this nature, they are very groggy at that particular point. And if in fact that he is sober, this could even have some other rather significant reasons why he's mentioning this, because he may be trying to psych him out. Let's just use that language. You're just seeing things. There's something wrong with you mentally. So he could be playing off of that sort of thing. Either which way that it might be perceived, then he's trying to get into Gaal's head. No, now that's one of the interesting aspects of this, because evidently Gaal presumes that Zebul is on his side. Yeah. He'd already done that. He didn't know. Gaal didn't know what Zebul had done. So, and that's part of all the mixture of the events that are taking place, is the fact that he was rather discreet in sending the messengers. As we remember, we talked about that as things were just going about their normal activity. Zebul could just very easily tell these fellas, and they're just not going to make any haste about it. They're just going about their normal little things and make their way over to a room. Yep, and then give the message. So here we go. So we come to verse 37, and Gaal spoke again as he's now looking closer, and he said, see, there are people coming down in the middle of the land, and there's another company come along in the plain of Meonanim. And, okay. So in looking at what he's now perceiving, their armies, he has come to the conclusion now that his sight is clear enough for him to recognize that there are forces that are coming down the mountain after him, after now he's presented himself at the gate of the city. That was a clear indication for Abimelech, who's evidently watching this, for him to come down and to deal with this situation. And you have to wonder at this point what it might be going through his mind. Now that he sees this and it's registering on him. Yeah, I was right when I saw this the first time. And whatever it was that Zebul's told him now, he's dismissed that. He realizes what's now come upon him. So you now have to wonder as to what's going through his mind. Because what you see between this verse and the next verse, it leaves the indication that he's just standing there looking. Now, what does that indicate? If he's just standing there looking, not saying anything, that's an indication in this situation of fear. I do not know what to do now. I was not really expecting this. I made the challenge, but I really wasn't expecting anybody. When you're drunk and when your opposition's not around, you can say a whole lot of things. But now that your opposition is there, so it seems that now that Zebul perceives the fear. I think he sees that on the face of Gaal. And that's what the situation is now that leads you to what you find in verse 38. Because now Zebul tells him, where's now thy mouth, wherewith thou sayest, who is Abimelech, we should serve him, is not this people that thou hast despised. Go out, and I pray thee, and fight with them. So now, where's your big mouth now? Yeah. 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 It's easy to say things like that at a distance. But Zebul reveals that when he states this, it's clear where his alliance lies, and it's not with Gaal. So that's got to be unsettling too. And but that's what he's asking now. Where's your big mouth now? You made the challenge. You made the challenge. Now it's been accepted. You wanted to fight. Now you got it. Go do it. Let's see you do it. That's one of these situations like you see in children. I double dog dare you.
Well, when he said that, I told Gaal that he knew what he said.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he had heard. He may not have been in the presence, but he did hear it. We do know that. That's what made Zebul mad, when he heard it. And now it's made clear to him that he heard it. He knows about it. And I think he probably realizes at this particular point that Zebul is behind this situation that's now taking place. So, And Zebul, of course, he didn't make any difference him one way or the other. The alliance that he has with Abimelech, it's not so much a worry with him at this particular point. So now, like I say, you wanted to fight, here it is. All right, comment, question on any of this thus far? So when you look at the beginning in verse 39, God went out before the men of Shechem, fought with Abimelech. Give me your impression of what is stated there. I mean, it seems simple, but just kind of think your way through what is stated there. God went out before the men of Shechem, fought with Abimelech. Put yourself in his shoes. What he had done when he made that boast, he's put himself in a very difficult position, and evidently must not have thought that he was going to have to deal with it. But now that he's in this position, knowing what he sees right now, he realizes, I think that I should not have made that statement. This is an unwinnable situation. I'm surrounded and by a superior force. But if I'm going to save face with the men of Shechem, I'm going to have to do something. So, you know, if you're going to boldly make a statement that you're going to do something, you better carry it out. And I guess that's what he feels like he needs to do. So he leads his force out against Abimelech. And sure enough, then, in verse 40, Abimelech chased him, fled before him, and many were overthrown and wounded, even unto the entering of the gate. So now as the battle commences, Gaal is sent into rather quick retreat, and he's trying to get back to the gates of the city. But it seems to be a significant point here that he is not able to do so. Remember, he's come out of the city to meet Abimelech. Abimelech is sitting there waiting on him. And so as he engages with him, Abimelech now, of course, is defeating him. He sees his situation rather desperate. He's going to try to make his way back, but he's not able to get there. And his forces are overthrown. He's seeking the refuge in the walls, evidently, but he's not able to get back to it. So all of this is taking place outside the gate. So now at this point, it seems that Abimelech realizes now that he has overtaken this part of this rebellion, but he also realizes too that there's a rebellious contingency that is still in the city, and now he's got to deal with that. So even though that's not specifically stated here, that's obviously what you're going to see through the next few verses here, because verse 41 is going to tell us. In fact, I'm not sure exactly why it is that this is mentioned at this particular point. Could be mentioned anywhere, but Abimelech dwelled in Arumah. Now, it's not certain exactly where Arumah is, according to some scholars, but most perceiving that it's in this vicinity here. It's in close proximity to Shechem, so this is perceived here to be the home of Abimelech in this area right here. So this is where the message would have come, that would have come from Zebul, and therefore when he gets his forces together, he's going to make his way most likely down in this valley here, and then up in these mountains and around this area here. So that's how he's going to make his way, but he's just mentioned that is where evidently he must have lived. And Zebul thrust out Gaal and his brethren that they should not dwell in Shechem. Now that's rather interesting, isn't it? Zebul is now taking advantage of the situation now. I think we probably can perceive that Gaal has been dispatched. Most of those among his troops have been. So there's no one left in the city with any power that's going to be able to deal with this except Zebul, and he's got the authority, evidently, if he's got others that are on his side as well, and there evidently are, because we're going to see that in a minute, that he's going to round up those that are faithful to him and Abimelech, and they're evidently those that are. and they're going to run the rest of these folks out of the city. Now, remember again, not everything's in order here, so do keep in mind some things that are going to take place. And he's going to take those that are followers of his, and they're going to run out Gaal's followers out of Shechem. Now, the text, as we've pointed out, where Abimelech's from, but having already covered that, let's just go on verse 42. Now, this comes about on the next day. So wherever it is that Abimelech is, now that's the reason why I'm having a little difficult to understand exactly why he's mentioning where Abimelech was from, as to whether or not he may have gone back up here or something. I have a doubt that he may have gone back home. So I'm not certain it's exactly why this is mentioned at this particular point, but I would suspect that he's still encamped in the area around the city. So on the morrow, on the next day, the people went out into the field, which gives us an indication that he must have still been in this area. They go out into the field, and they're going to tell Abimelech what? They're rounding up these others that are responsible for this rebellion. And now, as you remember, you got to remember again now, we're not getting all the details yet. All of it's coming. You're going to be dealing with two different parts of this rebellion. You got Gaal's forces, which evidently now been dispatched. You've got those who may have been favorable to him, that now Zebul and his people are going to run out. And then you got the other leaders, and we haven't got to them yet. And that's coming. But now, here they come out. These are some, at this particular point, that are allied and more favorable to Abimelech, and they're going to come out and tell them about who it is that's been responsible for this rebellion. Okay? So now, you got an interesting situation that comes from all this. As he's learning, as Abimelech is learning this, he has come to the knowledge of the fact that the very people that have been responsible for having made him king, there's a good number of these people, in fact, evidently must have been a great portion of them, have turned on him. And now that he's defeated Gaal, he knows that in order, if he's going to maintain his power, he's got to deal with this rebellious contingency. He can't allow this to continue as it is. So after the day of the battle on the next morning here, those who side with him are going to come out and tell him who's responsible. So this goes down to verse 43. And he took the people, that's those that have come out now, and divided them into three companies. So he's added them to the rest of his force here. So what you're going to do is you're going to help me be able to accomplish this. And he laid in wait in the field, which is interesting to me. So he still stays out in the field, and look, and behold, the people will come forth out of the city, rose up against them, and smote them. So it's kind of interesting how all this transpires here. So now that he's got these others that have come out and added them to his forces, and it doesn't state how long it was that those that were inside eventually now come out. That's part of this. Now, to me, what's some interesting things about this is why Abimelech used this strategy. Anybody want a positive view on why? I mean, since he's already dispatched Gaal, he's got somebody with power, that is Zebul, in the city. And why is it that he's just laying in wait right here? Why doesn't he just go on in and take them? Well, they do have the city. I mean, they're still in the city if there's some there. He's evidently smart enough to realize if they have fortified this place to start with, I may be walking into a little bit of a trap. So he's evidently smart enough to figure that out. So, and there's a couple of things that might be going on here. He may have surrounded the city it's kind of like Titus did with Jerusalem in AD 70. You know, he surrounded the city, cut off all commerce. They couldn't get anything in or out. And basically was just going to starve people out. Now, it may be something of that nature that might be taking place right here, but it's also possible that those in the city, he may have hid himself in such a fashion that they in the city may think now that he's just gone back to Aruma. He thinks that everything's already done now and out of place. And so he just goes on back to Aruma, so we don't have to worry about it. So they're going to simply go about their business. Now the gate is now going to open. And now they're going to start making their way out. It doesn't really make any difference what the reasoning is. We just know that evidently they must perceive that it's safe for them to come out of the city. And when they emerge, this is now what you're going to see beginning in verse 44 is telling how all of this is going to occur. But you do note that he mentions here, he rose up against them and smote them, but we don't have all the details. Now, beginning in verse 44 is when you're going to see how he goes about it. So we look at verse 44, and Abimelech and the company that was with him. Now, how many companies does he have now? He's got, remember, he came in with 4 different companies to surround the city. Now, he's got 3 companies, but most likely got more in those 3 because he's added the same numbers most likely he's got together. Probably hadn't lost that many, if any, at all. And now he's divided up in 3 companies and the company that was with him. So he's leading one of the companies. So now that when these people come out of the city, what does he do? Okay, well, not yet, not really. When they come out of the city and they leave, they're evidently going in the field, so they're going someplace else to work or whatever. The first thing that he does is he rushes with his company, secures the gate. So he's got control of the gate. Why does he do that? Now they have no way to retreat. So he's cut off the retreat. So now when he does that, what do the other 2 companies now do? They come out and they kill all of them. Since they had them trapped, they had nowhere to run. So he was smart enough to cut off the retreat, catches the people outside the city, and kills them. Right. Yes. From Z. And most likely of his family too. I mean, he has no compunction about anything like that because he's already killed 69 of his brothers, or 68 of them. So, I mean, that does, if he has the interest of maintaining his power, and it's like we talked about in some of the early statements that we made concerning this chapter about those in monarchies, positions of being kings. Some of the greatest enemies that you perceive, even though you may not have them as an enemy, you perceive most of those in your family as being your enemy. And that's what a lot of English kings and others have done, is when there are those that they might have some claim to the throne, but if they're going to have that, then if I'm going to remain king, I've got to remove the threat. And so they just have them killed. And that's just what to do. So if he's of that disposition he had before, it's not going to be anything, I don't think, with him to do it here now. So he get rid of all of them too. So now all of these that had been evidently allied with Gaal, thinking now that Abimelech's gone, now they're slain. Now, so that means that the others perhaps that are in the city, there's other interesting things that are going to be taking place here. And you got to wonder what's going to happen to them. But we do know that there's a contingency of the rebellion that we're going to see in just a little bit. But and he will deal with them. But let's just continue here. We go to verse 45. And here he says, Abimelech fought against the city all that day. Now, after this is taken, remember that started early in the morning. So now, during the course of the day, after he's dispatched all these people, now he does take the city. So he's gone in, and now he's going to kill everybody that was in there that evidently had allied themselves with God. And anybody that wasn't allied with him is going to be evidently part of his company. So anybody that's left there is pretty much going to be those that are going to be killed. So he's massacring the whole rest of the city, and he beat down the city, and then he sold it with salt. Now, basically, when he tells it he's beat down the city, he's most likely may have set fire to it. It tells you a little bit, perhaps, maybe about how the city itself was built. It's probably not one of your better architectural designs that you might find, but if ever how it was, he just simply basically brought it, he demolished it. And then he sold it with salt. Now what are we dealing with? Okay. Now, a lot of people have the idea that might have been doing this in the fields, but the fields were outside the city. So throwing salt on the city and covering it up with salt. This was a common practice I've come to learn from my research here with those that were conquerors. And it's kind of an interesting concept because it serves as a bit of a memorial that those that were conquering kings, they do this to kind of show their power. Now, what are some of the properties of salt? What is salt used for? Preservation, flavoring, purification. It's a symbol. It's also a symbol, from what I understand, of incorruption and perpetuity. You know, preservation is the concept behind that. So if he's doing this, it seems as along with others, and he most likely has known that other conquerors have done this. So he's doing the same. And what he's wanting to do is anybody that comes into the area of Shechem and sees what's happened here, that they're going to associate what happened to him and his power, because he has absolutely demolished the place. And it's as a result of his power that this was done. So every time they come into this, he's wanting most likely his name to be remembered and to keep anybody else from thinking about doing anything like this again. So this is a clear signal to any other city, any other people from any other cities that come in and around this area. Abimelech's responsible for that. So if we don't want that to happen to our city, we better leave him alone. That's kind of what this is all about. Comment or question there? Now then, we come to the other part. This is verse 46. And when all the men of the tower of Shechem heard that, they entered into an hold of the house of the god of Berith. So it seems that the leaders of the city, so far, they've eluded capture and death, and most likely with their families. And as what you're going to learn is about 1,000 of these people, men, women, children. And when they hear of the fate of the city and those ones that now have been in hiding, maybe in this tower, then one of the things that they're going to do now, they're seeking refuge in this temple in the hold, which is most likely down like in a cavern or something of this nature up under that thing. And you got one of the many, you talk about Baal Berith, this is one of the many representations of Baal. And interesting language is found here. It makes it just a little bit confusing. There was evidently some kind of like a castle fortress, this tower that we're talking about here. And a lot of these cities would have them. It's not necessarily something tremendously tall or anything like that, but like a battlement. You would have a tower here that would be easier to perhaps defend the area. You might hide yourself in there, but with perhaps archers or something of this nature, you take their place in the tower because it's easier to shoot down than it is for them to shoot up. It's a little bit more difficult to get to, but with the number of forces that Abimelech has, and seeing the fact that he's already beat down the city, that might give you an indication too that he might have had some means to undercut the foundation of that tower and perhaps even bring it down. So they're looking down at that circumstance, and so they're going into the temple of Belberith to try to, and a hole that's there, so that I think they're probably thinking that as long as they are in this temple, that perhaps Abimelech would not hurt them there. Why? Because he is a Baal worshiper himself, and this is what a lot of this has started, all this mess to start with anyway. But nevertheless, they evidently are thinking that, so they're taking. That is my perception too. I think he's going to realize that this is exactly where these people are going to go. So that are part of the circumstances here. Yeah. So now you go to verse 47. So it's told Abimelech. There are those, like, remember, that were allied with him among the people. They probably already knew that that's where they had gone. So they tell Abimelech that the men of the tower were gathered together. So they have them and their families, and they're trying to hide. So Abimelech gets up to Mount Zalmon. Now, Mount Zalmon is actually Mount Ebal. It's the same mountain. It also has that name. But this is where it is that he's going to go. He and all his people that were with him. Abimelech took an axe in his hand. This is verse 48 now. Now, when you go up in this area, it's evidently forested area. Evidently well forested. He takes an axe with him. He comes up to a good tree, and he cuts a limb off the tree, laid it on his shoulder. This is a pretty good limb. This is not just a twig now. He's got a limb, good size limb. You're talking about most likely a bunch of limbs or limb that he's carrying. Okay? Because he cut down a bough from the trees. So you've got obviously something along that line, the plural that's there. Laid it on his shoulder. He tells the people that were with him, what you've seen me do, you need to be in a hurry about it and do the very same thing. So now you've got all these limbs, and the brush sticks evidently must be fairly long as well. It doesn't have to be terribly long, but you're gathering up a whole group of sticks, limbs, good limbs, okay? Because he's got reason what it is that he's about to do with it. Because he knows where they are, and here's what he's going to do. Verse 49 tells us, and all the people likewise cut down every man his bough, his limbs, and followed Abimelech. They put them to the hold. So now, after every one of them have got their limbs, they all come into where this place is that they're hiding, and they stack all this wood around where these people are hiding. And so now you've already got an idea what's about to happen here. And set the whole on fire upon them, so that all the men of the tower of Shechem died, also about 1,000 men and women. So now he's dispatched all outside, set out there and waited for those that were allied with him in the city to come cut off their retreat, killed them, went into the city, killed the rest of them that were in the city, because those that are allied with Abimelech are now with him. Then he finds out where it is that the leaders are hiding, gets the wood, finds out where they're hiding, and burns them to death. Comment about that? Verse 49. Verse 50, excuse me. Then went Abimelech to Thebez. Now Thebez, after coming from Shechem right here, is up this way. Now evidently, he must think that there is some contingency of a rebellion up here. So now he leaves from Shechem, goes up against Thebez, and now he's going to take it. But as you see in verse 51, there's a strong tower within that city. And thither fled all the men and the women, they all the city, and shut it to them, and get them up into the top of the tower. So, you got another situation that's very similar to what you're seeing in Shechem. But if we want to learn about what's going to happen to them, you'll have to read it, or you'll have to come back next week. We're out of time. So those of you that are watching, you can do the very same thing. But if you don't have a Bible with you, then we got a good story coming, and so you need to make sure you tune in next week. Better yet, just come be with us. Yeah, on our way back, of course, on the way up to Sevierville. A lot of times, if you don't listen to music or something like that, you'll turn something else on. And I told Aunt Ruth, I said, just find a good book and audio book and just turn it on. So we were listening to a book, and a very suspenseful thing. And go chapter to chapter 9. It's really getting interesting yet, so you want to hear the rest of it. And so it's the same thing here. So you got an interesting story that's taking place, and of course, if you've already read it, you know what the end result's going to be, but it's just kind of good to study through it and help those who may not have gone through it. But it's a wonderful story, because we're learning a great deal about, again, when there are those that have assumed themselves to be beyond the hold of God. They will take themselves, and as is stated in this text, they will put themselves in the hold of a false God. They're thinking that they have protection in that place from that God. And come to find out that when there are those, it's kind of ironic, isn't it? When there are those that try to find themselves protected by something other than the God of heaven, what's going to happen to them? Yeah. And the irony being, those that obey not God and obey not the gospel, 2 Thessalonians 1, what happens? You got the Lord going to come in flaming fire, taking vengeance on them that know not God and obey not the gospel. Isn't that irony? Isn't it a bit of an irony that you're seeing here, where you've got these people that are seeking refuge from Baal, and they're not going to be able to get by with it from God. And what you're seeing, actually a force that God is actually using to take care of this situation, because of the cruelty that has not only been enacted by Abimelech, but they're complicit. And he's taking care of both of them eventually. And but he's got the people gone at this particular point. Serves as a good lesson for us today. And I think we just use that as our point of encouragement as well. 763. 763. There may be those that need to obey the gospel, or there are those that have, as children of God, so sinned as to reproach him, need to rectify their situations with their maker and their brethren. And we use this song to encourage you to do that. So if that need exists, won't you, while we stand, while we sing it? Jesus waiting, waiting in our home. He will make his home. See him slow and why Jesus waiting, knocking at the door. Goodness is his leading, yes, forevermore. Come, poor soul, away, open Be seated. Good to see each and every one of you again this evening. Glad you're here. Just don't forget our services Sunday morning at 9 o'clock, 9, 10, 11. And let's urge others to come and be with us during those times. Let's see. Let me check. This is coming as third Sunday, isn't it? Okay, just making sure I got this is fourth Sunday coming up. Okay. That's the reason I was wanting to look, because I couldn't make it. Yeah. Wrong one, did he? There we go. Yeah. Fourth Sunday. And then we will have our singing service, but we will not have our fellowship Sunday. Reason being is because we're going to do that then Friday night. Is that okay? Okay. Okay, so let's just kind of keep that in mind. We've got family night Friday night at 6 o'clock, and we're going to try to do hamburgers and hot dogs and perhaps some homemade ice cream. So maybe we'll get to do that and just enjoy a good time here.
We're thinking about the ladies who may go on to Bucky's one day next week. I need input on who would like to go and what day would be best.
Okay, so meet up with Nina Ruth if you want to take your trip to Bucky's sometime over the next week. So figure out what days and what times you can go. Okay. Any other announcements you know of? I don't know of anything otherwise that's going on. There's not any of the meetings. I appreciate Brother Matt. I didn't get to hear him. I've been busy. I'm sure he did a good job. At Amory, is there one in Amory? I haven't heard. They may have. I'll have to look on site and see if I can find it. But if there is, we'll try to make sure that we announce that. And then I'll be in one September the 8th. We'll be gone then. So we'll be looking to get somebody to take that. Anything else? If not, Brother Elvis, you want to dismiss us, please, sir?